Harry, you're muted.
Hearing me loud and clear, February? I'm getting like a disturbance. We're live now.
Yes, you're echoing.
Hold on, let me check this.
Guys, please.
Is that better, February?
It echoes again, but it's delayed. Do you have two different sound available? Like
All right, let me know if
two
this is
different
better for
devices?
everybody.
Oh, say something again, please, Harry.
Is that better for everybody?
Oh my, we're still echoing. Okay. Hmm. Okay, sure, sure. We'll do just that. All
Let me know
right.
if the audio is a lot better.
You're still echoing. Go again, please.
I'm still echoing.
That sounds good.
That's better? Okay.
But I heard myself again, so something is echoing. Not sure what it is. That's interesting. That's interesting. Viewers, please bear with us. We're trying to. Okay, let's see what the viewers are saying. Yes, I'm hearing an echo on my side. So why am I echoing? All right, so mic check.
How are we now, February?
I am echoing. Hmm. Well, I hear an echo, but I'll see what's happening on my side. It could be on my side. Oh boy. Let me see. So I removed this, but I need to know my microphone. Hmm, which one? Mic check. I'm just testing the audio again. I have an echo again. All right, guys. So since you don't have any echoes, I have an echo, but I'll just completely act like I cannot hear it. Thank you guys for coming. Welcome to the show. So neighbor is busy right now with something. He won't be able to make it until later to continue the show. However, we have Harry here, who is our co-host, and he will be hosting the show tonight. So I'd like to introduce you. This is Harry.
Good night, everybody. Good night, good night, good night. Hope everybody had a very good day today, productive one. And I know, neighbor is not here tonight, but the show goes on. We're the neighborites, and the show continues. And we have a blockbuster for you guys tonight. Jeffrey?
Yes, Harry.
Okay. I remember we told the neighborites that we had a little surprise for them over by YouTube. Never expected to come this early. Opportunity comes. So, as promised, YouTubers, TikTokers, neighborites, and your host Harry for tonight. How's everybody doing? Caroline, is everything okay over there on TikTok? You hearing Caroline?
Are you hearing me, Harry?
Yes, I'm hearing you now.
You hearing me, sir?
Yes, loud and clear.
Well, fantastic, man. My goodness, I'm seeing you for the first time. Member Harry, how you doing?
Not doing too bad, Remember, neighbor.
Well, it's fantastic. As a matter of fact, it's fantastic to see you. I'm sure that the listeners are delighted to see you. And is your mother watching?
I'm not sure. I spoke to her before I came on, but in due time, I think she'll be here.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure. I can just imagine the numbers that you're going to be having on there tonight, eh?
Let's see, YouTubers. Let's see if we can outdoor TikTokers, even though we're one family.
Yes, are we live on TikTok also?
Well, we should be
Not,
live,
not
and
yet, neighbor.
not yet.
Well, yeah, I'm hearing you loud and clear, Harry, and I'm seeing you loud and clear. Your cameras are better than mine, or is it your lights?
It could be both in a neighbor.
You are more into the technology than I do. I can tell you that. So, Harry, what's on the agenda tonight? What are you going to be talking about?
Well, neighbor, we continue on the topic of building Jamaica.
Yes.
We're looking more in terms of the long road from recovery to resilience for
Uh-huh.
Jamaica. and what this NaRRA bill means to Jamaica, because I don't think we can, emphasize too much on the importance of it because of what it encompasses, the transformation that it will have for Jamaica when done correctly. And I mean, I know the argument surrounding this bill. We have a lot of controversial takes on it. We have a lot of events happening. We saw what happened in Parliament. Very festive, unparliamentary like, as we would anticipate. But the important parts of things, an important part of this bill is its entirety, what it will bring to Jamaica for the first time. I think nothing that happens in and around it should take away from its importance to Jamaica and its future.
Yeah, it's fascinating, Harry, because I think that the country is beginning to take greater interest in NaRRA, and I think they ought to, because as part of this democracy and people who should be more civic literate, I think the interest in NaRRA is growing. I think it has been also buttressed by the events that happened in Parliament on Tuesday. In other words, the events that happened in Parliament, though some of it was negative, it has brought much more interest to NaRRA, and therefore many people are trying to find out what happened in Parliament with the removal of the mace. But it's all about the NaRRA bill, eh?
Right, and I don't want people to focus on the mace, but focus on the message from NaRRA,
Yes.
right? We won't be caught in the act of being distracted.
Right.
As I said, a lot is happening around it. Some that may be strategic and intentional, but the good thing is that here in Neighbor, we have conversations that matter, and our conversation will be around the importance of this bill, which will become legislation very soon, and its transformative factors. That is what is important. It doesn't matter who, wanted to act out and trouble the mace. It doesn't matter who disagrees with it and don't know how to properly follow standing orders. It doesn't matter who make TikTok videos and AI videos about, what is happening in there. It has to be pointed as to what the facts are around this bill and what comes with it.
Well, sir, I must tell you that you are looking absolutely fantastic and ready for primetime TV. And I think on conversations that matter tonight, you should do well. So let me tell you this. We have 71 persons on TikTok. No. That's on YouTube watching now. I will have to leave you in another 5 minutes or so because I'm heading out to a meeting to come back. But best wishes, sir, and you seem all set, and I'm sure you have all systems firing there. Please remember that we can watch the rebroadcast, so you could just go right ahead. Shafreen, are you there? Shafreen? No,
I am here, neighbor.
not
Yes, I
here.
am here.
Well, we're gonna throw it straight to Harry, and it's gonna be the Harry's notes tonight, eh?
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
It's, it,
great.
it's still the neighbor's note, just a different neighbor.
That's right. Neighbor's notes. Okay, over to you, Harry. Have a great show.
All right, neighbor, thank you. And safe travels.
I
Yes.
don't understand this. Yes.
Everything okay, Sheffrey?
You just talk to the guest for a moment, and then while I am sorting this out.
All right, so everybody, another welcome. It's great to be here. Giving thanks for the opportunity to be with our neighborites. I do hope we'll all appreciate tonight. But we will look into, as we structure for the rest of the show, we look into some news for the day, some of the headlines. We start with the probing from the Gleaner here. It says probe deepens into the UHII tax exemption abuse. And of course, we've been also covering that news surrounding it, and it's good to know that it's still an important topic that is being discussed. We also do have, based on what happened in Parliament last night or 2 nights ago, we have Government Senator Marlon Morgan, who is calling for the apology from Dr. Angela Brown Burke and Mr. Mark Golding over that disgraceful conduct in Parliament. That's the headlines for it. We also do have here NEPA investigating monkey presence in St. Elizabeth. So, we put health first. And as such, I want everybody to stay safe. Be careful how you handle animals in this time. You have to be very safe with it. So it's NEPA investigating the monkey presence in St. Elizabeth, and it warns that the public should be careful regarding the handling of animals. We also do have here, there's an upgrade that has begun for the Hermitage Dam, the well-needed upgrade for sure. It's beautiful to see that we're taking our irrigation very seriously. It's a good thing to see. We're also expanding, our waterways for a country that is encompassed around water. We should be doing better, and this is a very good move throughout. And in other news, this is a very good one with the controversy that has been stirring around education in Jamaica. Headline is "No Panic Over PEP," as students in the Western Jamaica is pleased with the first day of exams. And that is good news to hear, specifically coming from the West. It shows that, despite Melissa happening, we're still resilient enough to get back to some level of normalcy. And it's good to see that we can have our future in terms of our students still be able to sit their exams rather comfortably. Is everything okay there for you now, Jeffrey?
I'm still working on it. Just a few more minutes, please.
All right. I don't want to go into our own notes tonight just yet. I want to ensure that we have our TikTok family with us. I want them to be able to get through with us tonight on the notes, because I know they're looking forward to tonight specifically to see what is in the bag that we're putting out tonight. Let me just double check here. YouTubers, let's see if you're hearing me loud and clear. Please, leave a comment. Put a one in the chat if you're looking forward to tonight's discussion. We have a blockbustering lineup tonight for you guys. We do it the right way, the neighbor rights way. Okay. So let me know when we are live there, Chef Green, and then we can take it from there. We do have another one coming from the news. We had Claude Big Stone Sinclair, remembered for his big heart. He has passed. For those who are in the music fraternity and know about Mr. Sinclair, you know that he has always been someone who caters, who gives back right through when it comes on to the music society. Of course, his work specifically regarding or known for the advocacy for Black consciousness and social justice. He was 68 years young when he passed earlier today. So that's sobering news to know. We've lost a very good veteran when it comes on to not just the music, but in delivering for community building. Of course, that's something we have to definitely look at fully. All right, so let's see. In the meantime, are we okay, Jeffrey?
Yes, we are live on TikTok.
All right. Let me welcome my TikTok family, because I know they weren't here a few minutes ago. So good night, TikTokers. Good night, everybody. Good night, the neighbor rights from TikTok. Welcome, everybody. Tonight, I am your neighbor. I'll take you through the neighbor's notes, just another neighbor.
Oh,
Caroline, how's everything? I don't think I'm hearing Caroline, Sheffrey.
Are you able to hear her?
No, I'm not hearing her clearly.
Hmm. He's not able to. So now the sound. Maybe I should restart to get the sound working.
Uh, we can. Labor rights, can you give us
No,
about
this one is okay. It's just the TikTok one
right?
that's
Okay, okay, look, TikTok it. So
he's not able to hear you. I can hear you, but he's not able to hear you. So I need to see why that is. Because at first, I believe, I thought he could hear you the first time. Um, but I'll try. I'm gonna have to restart the live.
let me try one thing from my end before you restart the live.
Okay. So
Sheffrey,
sorry.
can you give me?
Yes, yes, go ahead. All right, so I could restart it or oh, what is this? There's sound. Where's the sound coming from? Uh-oh, there is a sound coming through.
All right,
All
let me
right.
see if I can hear Caroline now. Caroline, go ahead.
Oh, Caroline, start. Say something. See if we can hear you. I don't believe we can hear you. He's. Did you hear?
I'm doing something from my end. I can hear Caroline based on what I just did with my device. I'll work with that. Or is it
Okay.
that you want to restart? Because I know it's going to be a little delayed when I speak coming over.
Oh, it's just a little delayed getting to Harry. So he says he could work with it.
I can work with it. I'm hearing you. It's just a little distant from that end. Because what I did was to I'm actually seeing us from TikTok. So I'm hearing you through TikTok while I'm via both medium. Okay. All right. So let me take you guys through tonight's notes, labor rights. We do apologize for the technical difficulties, but of course we proceed nonetheless. But I want to take us tonight through a period that I wasn't even born, but it's a period in which Jamaicans lived, those before us, right? And the beautiful thing about it is that we're going on this journey, not just through time, but through what we call a transformation. A journey that begins in the howling winds of Hurricane Gilbert, right? And it's going to pass through the hard lessons we learned through Hurricane Ivan. And of course, we'll arrive at where we are in present day regarding the modern test of Hurricane Melissa. A moment that has forced us to rethink not just how we recover, but who we are as a nation, right? It is not just a story about disasters, but it's a story about governance. about policies, about philosophy, and about in terms of whether a country merely survives its storms or it's transformed by them. Now, neighborites, you can sit back, relax if you want to have a cup of tea, the coffee, whatever it may be. But we're looking at tonight what I call when the winds expose the state. In 1988, we experienced Hurricane Gilbert. It wasn't a gentle knock on the doors of Jamaica. It announced itself with force, with the sweeping across Jamaica, with a ferocity that left destruction in its wake. And a lot of persons here knows about this, experienced this. Entire communities were flattened, infrastructure collapsed, agriculture, when you look at bananas, coffee, they were decimated. But Gilbert didn't really come and take away our infrastructure, but it did something more profound than the physical damage. It revealed the limits of Jamaican state within that time. The government response, though, merely earnest, was rooted in what I might call a relief-centered governance, right? Now, people will wonder what's the relief-centered governance. The focus was immediate, the food distribution, the emergency shelters, basic rebuilding of homes, and the restoration of roads and utilities, right? But when we look in terms of what came to Jamaica, international aid became essential. Multilateral agencies, foreign investments, and NGOs, they stepped in to fill the gaps that domestic systems couldn't. And this is not a criticism of the government of the time, definitely not yet. But it is the reality. It was a lived experience for everyone in that period. Jamaica in 1988 was not institutionally equipped for large-scale disaster management. There was no deep integrated national resilience framework, no sophisticated early warning culture, no strong interagency coordination mechanisms. The recovery policy after Gilbert had really three defining characteristics. It was centered around the government responding after impact, not before. The preparedness was minimal. It's something they couldn't have handled. They didn't foresee. They didn't have the necessities in terms of policies and aid to take it on. They went in terms of sector by sector rebuilding, housing, agriculture, the infrastructure that was addressed. It was done in segments, right? It was done in terms of when we look at it, it was done in terms of, the integrated planning. Nothing integral, nothing too sophisticated. The short-term focus hurt Jamaica. The goal was restoration, getting Jamaica back to where it was before the storm. Not forward thinking, not forward to something stronger. And this is where the philosophy lens matters, because many will say they weren't equipped. And we can't necessarily say that. The Gilbert era policy reflects what political theorists might call the restorative state model. That's where a state exists to restore the equilibrium, the balance after disruption. It does not seek to transform what's in its path. It doesn't transform the system within itself. But here's the problem with that, neighbors and neighbor rights. If the system was vulnerable before the storm, then restoring it means restoring vulnerability. Because if you build back, it simply means you put what was already there. And if what was already there could not withstand what was in its path, then we would have learned what Gilbert has taught Jamaica, a painful truth. Right? Now, if we look, take a step forward and we look to Hurricane Ivan, because I'm taking you through the journey of these disasters. So we fast forward to 2004, which was roughly 16 years after. And as Hurricane Ivan approaches, this time it was different. Jamaica is not the same country that, Gilbert struck. The years in between were not idle, and we commend the government and its people to have adapted. They were instructive. Now, despite being instructive, institutions had evolved, most notably the strengthening, of ODPEM, that's the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, which signaled a shift toward coordination and planning. And that's a beautiful thing. Public awareness campaigns had improved. Citizens were more responsive to warnings. Evacuation efforts were more organized. This was no longer what we classify as a purely reactive state. Jamaica was finally moving somewhere, going forward. For what? It was more of a prepared state. We could see it in our people. We could see it in our reactions and being proactive. But after Ivan, government recovery policies reflected more of a structured and deliberate approach, doing damage assessments, which were systematic, enabling targeted intervention, infrastructure restoration, which is a must. Those were prioritized strategically, which focused on economic lifelines. It wanted to breathe life into what was then broken down by Gilbert. But when you look at the mere partnerships with international agencies that was more coordinated and policy driven, this was progress, real progress, I would put it. But let us examine critically labor rights, Jamaicans. The Ivan era, right? Recovery still largely operated within what we might call the resilience light framework. Yes, there was preparedness, in all honesty. There was. There was coordination. But the underlying model still aimed at rebuild and improve incrementally in small areas. It wasn't done fundamentally. There was a transformation fundamentally. In philosophical terms, this reflects what we call the incremental institutionalism. That's the belief that systems evolve through gradual improvements rather than radical design. And for a time it worked. Nothing lasts forever. Jamaica became better. And what they became better at was predicting storms, managing evacuations, coordinating responses. But truly, and I say, the real question behind it was, and it still remained unanswered for that period, are and were we building a nation that can withstand shocks, or one that simply recovers faster from them? And many will say it's an unfair question. But if you want to transform a country and a nation and move its people forward, it is very much fair game. Ivan brought us closer to the answer, yes, but not all the way. And when we look at, the gaps between what we're doing and what was required and where we should go, the question was still not answered in its entirety. And many will ask why I focused on those major disasters. They taught us lessons. They forced us to adapt and adopt changes. But the time frame by which we did it, the framework that we didn't evolve, was let to barrel. Questions more than answers. It simply means something was not being done fully. We weren't realizing the full measures. We weren't looking at how to be more proactive as a people, as a nation, from a government standpoint and policies. And that gap is between recovery and resilience. And before I go to Melissa, the present day, we must confront the uncomfortable truth. For decades, long before me, right? Before this program was figured out, before it was conceptualized, disaster policy in many countries, including Jamaica, operated in a space between two things, two main ideas. And that was recovery, returning to normalcy. And the next is resilience. And that's redefining normal. And we all know, based on what was said, we settle for the former. We return to normal. We go back to what we know. We don't look too far in the future. Why? Because transformation is very difficult. And I won't sit here tonight and lie about it. Change is hard. But to bring transformation, you have to accept change. And with transformation, it brings political will. Those who you put in parliament, those who you put to represent you, should perform, should want to do the job and do it to the best. We look at financial investment. It's not the easiest to handle. Institutional reform, and we know very well as to what's happening with our very own institutional reform, right? But one of the most important one is cultural change. What change has been done to its people to help move transformation forward? Because I'm still wondering, prior to the last 10 years, that is, recovery is easier. It's lazy, to be honest. It is a visible thing. It is immediate. And of course, it satisfies urgency. But looking at where we are now, we realize this is bare minimum. Standards have risen. Dreams are being dreamt. And reality of the situation is that we demand more. Global warming is there. Global changes is something we can't not approach. It is inevitable. And resilience, on the other hand, though, is a long-term, structural, and often invisible until the next disaster comes. Out of sight, out of mind. That's the approach. That's a culture we've seen. And so Jamaica, like many nations, we hover between these two paradigms until Melissa taught us a very important lesson. And many persons are wondering what that lesson was. And I can quote in terms of former Member of Parliament, Lisa Hanna. Melissa exposed the frameworks that were old, that was inefficient, ineffective, and could not deliver the present needs, much less the futuristic ones that are being demanded by its people. And that is laid firmly at the feet of our representatives, of our governments, present and before, because it's a continuum. And this doesn't happen in a silo. Now, Melissa is the greatest Atlantic catastrophe, natural catastrophe that has affected the Atlantic region in 174 years. And that wasn't a storm with just wind and rain, but consequences of failures, of weak framework. By this time, Jamaica had begun embracing a new institutional framework. And what birthed out of Melissa is where the controversy we've seen in Parliament over the last few days, over the past few weeks, is causing a problem. And that is the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority, NaRRA, if we may say so, for shortly. And with it came a new philosophy of governance, one that our people aren't aware of in its entirety. And I implore everybody to try and understand what NaRRA is, but more importantly, what NaRRA means to you as the individual. Because it's more on a personal level than ever before. It is not reactive, but merely prepared. It is adaptive and transformative. And I want to say in terms of under NaRRA, disaster recovery is no longer treated as an isolated event. It is not a one-off situation. It is seen as a part of a continuous national development cycle. And continuous here is the important word. Because it simply means we don't settle. We don't rest on our laurels because we recover. Because where we are located geographically dictates to us that we should always be prepared. Now, if we are to examine what makes us fundamentally different to the previous time, specifically to our approach for Ivan and our approach for Gilbert, this is from reconstruction to transformation. After Gilbert, rebuild what was lost. After Ivan, we rebuild better. But more importantly, after Melissa, we have to rebuild differently. And there's a difference. Gilbert, we build back what was lost. That's recovery. Ivan, we rebuild better, means some form of improvement. But what is being required in modern day is that we have to rebuild differently. And that is why NaRRA is so important. NaRRA emphasizes climate resilient infrastructure, smart urban planning, risk informed housing development. And the housing part is a big controversial part, who is saying government should do what and how much houses government should be providing. But that's not the focus. It's not how many houses you can put, but what is their strength level? What can they withstand and where they're placed? The goal is not to restore the past. We're beyond that. But to design a future that reduces vulnerability. And that is critical, neighborites, Jamaicans, the diaspora. Specifically the opposition, I'll put that too. Because they agreed to NaRRA but opposed at the same time. And the Bible will call that lukewarm. Because you can't agree in one moment and then disagree in another. Doesn't make sense. NaRRA comes with integrated governance for the first time in Jamaica. Previous responses were fragmented. Piece here, minister there, all over the place. But NaRRA introduces a centralized coordination that aligns ministries, local government bodies, the private sector who drives growth, and international partners. And we all saw it, how we're able to get this aid in world record time. Decision making becomes strategic, data driven, and a unified approach. And the beauty about it is data driven is important here. We all hear about, we don't want no smart cities. Understand what a smart city is. It's building back smarter, it's building back better. It is improving people's lives to resilience and not just recovery. We have the economic resilience as a policy under NaRRA. Gilbert era policy really focused on the physical building. Ivan added livelihood support. But the beauty about NaRRA is that it goes further. beyond what previous administrations could fathom. It was financially relief systems. For those who own a house, that means mortgage pauses, tax flexibility, that eases the pressure off people. It comes to the economic shock absorption mechanisms, targeted investment in vulnerable sectors. And in the words of Dr. Nigel Clark, who left us, for big organizations, and I suspect he will be back soon. He said he would not leave Jamaica vulnerable again. And we saw the birth of a catastrophe bond. NaRRA is a continuum of that, forward thinking. And of course, social equity is always at the center. This is perhaps the most transformative shift that we will see in modern history for Jamaica. NaRRA explicitly recognizes that disasters do not affect all citizens equally. And we saw what happened in the West compared to the East. NaRRA terrorized the West, decimated livelihood. And the NaRRA policies, they now consider gender disparities, income inequality, and geographic vulnerability. Recovery is no longer people. It is no longer just about rebuilding structures. It is about rebalancing society and doing it so well. And when we look in terms of a philosophical shift, from state as a responder to state as a designer, the previous eras, the previous policies from government was responsive. No real design. No real pushing forward to mitigation, to be proactive, to be ready in every and any way. And what we're really witnessing tonight, neighbor rights, is a policy evolution for Jamaica. It is a redefinition of the role of the state. 1988, government was a responder. 2004, government was a manager. But 2025, after Melissa, under the current administration, the state is becoming a designer of resilient systems. And this aligns with what the scholars would know, we call the adaptive governance theory, a model where institutions continuously learn, evolve, and redesign themselves in response to complex challenges. And disasters in this framework are not interruptions, they are feedback. And one of the things we want to look on is speak of feedback. How receptive the current administration was for changes to the NaRRA bill. That is a government that listens, an administration that knows they don't know everything, an administration that is inclusive, because you can't govern a people that don't know what is best for them. And when we look and we reflect, and we look in terms of the bill and the budget speech, we hear, promises about roads, housing, development. But do we expect words or do we expect results? You tell me. Because in Jamaica today, we are standing at a very important moment. A moment where the difference between what is said and what is done is about to be tested. This administration is about to be tested beyond what they have ever known. NaRRA is not just a bill, not just policy, but potentially the mechanism that determines whether the promises made in the 2026 budget becomes reality, or it just remains as promises. Promises we've seen from previous administrations to get votes, to appeal to emotions, and you wait until another 5 years before anything is done. We've seen it before. big announcement, bold visions, ambitious plans, sound bites, if you will. But somewhere between approval, coordination, and execution, things slow down. That's our bureaucracy. Procurement, for those who want to know. We have some of the worst procurement timelines in our history. And that is not to blame the current administration for those, but to look in terms of where that came from. The times that called for procurement measures to tighten fiscally, to have an account in terms of to ensure that you can watch everything that is done and oversight. Sometimes an oversight that needs oversight. But in today's day, that's not necessarily what you need. Projects are stalling, budget stretch, timeline slip, and the people, the very people those promises were made to, are left waiting. The turnaround time for assistance on the IBAN was 6 to 9 months. At the time, if your house was decimated, you got like $10,000. And if you work out that in terms of even inflation, the most that would probably come up is around $70,000 for today's day. And we see where the current administration minimum is offering 75 for minimal damages. So that speaks to where we are. Now, what really NaRRA is trying to do, at its core, it's about alignment. Because right now, development in Jamaica often operates in fragments. One agency approves, one delays, another reviews, and another revises. And by the time everything comes together, time is gone, money is strained, momentum is lost. But NaRRA is here to fast track all of that, no pun intended. We have 3 years to utilize the better part of 6.7 billion US dollars. It's not about the money, but about the value that it will add to the lives of people who needs it most. To a country that needs to breathe again. We've lost 56% of our GDP. For many, it doesn't seem like, we've lost it. But the reality is, we haven't taken a proper breath after Melissa. No, NaRRA is not there to remove oversight, but to organize it. And we've seen what the opposition has been speaking about. But let's connect this to what we were looking in the budget, because it doesn't happen in isolation. It is a promise of action. Roads will be built. Housing will be delivered. Communities will be developed. Opportunities will expand. But the question nobody can ignore, how do we move from commitment to completion? Because without a system that can deliver at scale, at a speed, and coordination, those promises are friction. A friction that leads to delay, a delay that leads to frustration. So when we talk about NaRRA, we're not just talking about a bill. We're talking about whether the engine of delivery is strong enough to carry the weight of national expectations. The weight of your dreams, people. Those dreams that you've now been, you've dreamt. And it's fair. It's fair to dream those dreams. But you need an engine, a mechanism to be able to deliver. We've never had that engine. Hence why we are responsive. And when we look at the expectation, the timeline, and the public pressure, there's something else happening at the same time. The public is impatient. And it's right. It's rightfully so. We want to see change now. Not in theory, not in reports, but in reality. And that creates pressure, not just on government, but on the system itself that is designed to deliver. Because when expectations rise faster than execution, trust begins to weaken. And that's where this moment becomes critical, because NaRRA isn't just about speed. Barring what the opposition wants to put forward, it isn't about speed. It's about restoring confidence that things can actually get done that we've never seen before. And now let's be fair. Every major reform brings concerns. Some will ask, is this too centralized? Where's the oversight? Are we moving too fast? Because government and governance must always protect transparency, accountability, and due process. But the real conversation we need to have, and we will have it tonight, can we design a system that is both fast and responsible? Because the reality is too much delay means no delivery. We've lived that. Too little oversight equals bad delivery. We lived that. The goal is not to choose one. The goal is to get both right. It isn't one or the other. We have to do both. At the moment, it's bigger than any policy, to be honest. It's about what kind of country Jamaica wants to be. We're not building back to where we were. We don't want normal. We want to prepare for the future. A country that debates or a country that executes, which will we call? Because if Jamaica can prove just that, it means that it can plan effectively, it can execute efficiently, and deliver consistently. We've not been able to do all three. Then it doesn't just change our infrastructure. It changes the perception. It signals to the world that Jamaica is not just potential. Jamaica is performance. And it's about time that we're known for performance. Not performance in music, not performance in culture. Definitely not just performance in sport. Let's do it on a grand scale. Let's do it for our people. Let's do it for the nation to move forward. And that in itself, we have to have a system that protects process, as well as a system that delivers progress. Now, this is the beautiful thing about NaRRA. It's what will Jamaica become? What does this all mean? And it's a simple question, in all honesty. It simply means Jamaica's disaster recovery story is no longer just about hurricanes. It's about the identity. Gilbert showed us our weaknesses. Ivan showed us our progress. Melissa is forcing our transformation. We're moving Jamaica towards a country that does not just rebuild, does not just prepare, but anticipates, adapts, and evolves. A Jamaica where policy is not reactive but visionary, where recovery is not an end point, but a beginning. And so I leave you with this, neighborites and Jamaicans. Storms will come. They always will. We're located in the area that they have to come. But the question is no longer whether Jamaica can survive them. The question is, what kind of nation will we choose to become because of them? We will remain a country that rebuilds what was lost? And that's a question. Or will we rise as a nation that reinvents itself every time the winds test its foundation? That is a choice before us. And that, my fellow Jamaicans, is the true meaning of resilience. It is what NaRRA brings to the table once and for all for Jamaicans. And that's the end of our neighbors' notes tonight. That's it. How you doing, man? I'm not hearing sketchy.
Scratch, you're probably sleeping. Greetings, sir.
Let Let me see if I hearing Scotchy and Caroline from my end.
Oh, I just wanted to know that you were hearing us. That is why I spoke because,
Oh yes, man. I'm hearing over by YouTube.
all right, I could only hear cricket a while ago.
Oh, you hearing me, Scotchy?
The question
Oh,
is, are you seeing them any at all?
um, I'm seeing them from via TikTok side. But yeah, what are you doing,
Okay.
man? What are you doing, Scratchy? Hold on. Let me take a look here. You hearing me better, Scratchy?
Okay. So it seems as if everything has finally merged. Harry, are you hearing me? I want to make sure. Harry and Sheprin, can you hear me any at all?
Hey, Joshua, you hearing me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you. I just wanted to make sure that you were hearing me also.
Yeah, I'm hearing you from my end loud and clear. I'm just not hearing Scratchy and Caroline.
Uh, if you can see TikTok, could you ask the listeners to type in the chat if they can hear you because I'm hearing you over here and also on YouTube just to make sure that they're hearing us. We may have to continue if they can't hear the others. Oh, I hear a female's voice in the background, but I'm not sure what they're saying.
it's
Faintly.
really, it's,
Oh, I'm hearing you now, Shapri.
yeah, so the TikTok is not sounded on YouTube. So
All right, so we may have to make a decision to run out long in the meantime. And apologize to the listeners for the technical difficulty. So those who are at one side, they will hear each other, and those over here will hear us.
Yeah, that's what I'm realizing. I'm hearing Scratchy in the distant, you know.
yeah, so here's the issue. So TikTok can hear everything happening on this side, but YouTube cannot hear anything on TikTok.
Oh, I see. Um,
Oh, so we experience that issue between both
the
applications. So
merging, right? The interface.
yeah, so Caroline, Scratchy, and everybody on TikTok can hear their side. Likewise, we can hear our side, but the crossing we're not necessarily hearing.
Right, 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 right. In the meantime, I want to apologize to our listeners who may be waiting to hear from us. Um, as you are aware, we are having technical difficulties, which is beyond our control at this time. We'll try to sort it out as we progress.
I
I'm
can hear
hearing.
you.
Oh, I'm hearing you now, Shafreen. A while ago, we couldn't hear you. You're faint again. I know you're saying something, but I can't hear a word.
It's Caroline. So she's speaking from TikTok. I can hear her. I can hear everyone. Unfortunately, it's not transferring over to YouTube.
All right. Can YouTube hear you, Shafreen?
Are you able to hear me now, Caroline? Yes. Okay, sure. But the sound is not coming over to the YouTube. All right. So Joshua Connecting has the floor. In the meanwhile, I'm going to work on seeing how I can ensure that the sound comes through.
All right, no
So,
problem.
so Shafreen, the listeners are hearing was clear for both. It's just that us aren't hearing each other.
Right. The interface is not working. I'm wondering if, in the meantime, until we sort it out, we could split it and we talk on this side while they speak on the other side, just so that the listeners over this side are not left in um, unattended. Shafreen?
Yes, I'm here.
Right.
Oh, it's the TikTok is not. Hmm.
If you're just joining us, listeners, we want to apologize. We're having a little bit of technical difficulty in terms of the interface between YouTube and TikTok. And so they may be hearing us on TikTok, but we're not hearing them from TikTok over this side. And as such, we want to apologize for the delay. Bear with us a little longer while Shafreen try to sort out the challenges that we're having.
All right. So, Harry and Joshua, you may go ahead and speak, please.
All right. Thank you
Okay.
very much. So, Harry, you made a masterful presentation a while ago. After all of that, I feel like a child at kindergarten compared to a university student. You know, I'm, after a good meal has been had and the scraps is left over, and a beggar comes by, I feel like that's all that's left for me now. You know,
Well, you know what's a beautiful thing about politics plus network. There's always more to be had, Joshua.
yes, sir.
Belly
Yes,
full
sir.
and more, it is
Benefit
more
and
than
more.
just, yeah, man. You know that is the scripture with the two loaves and well, two fish and
Five,
five loaves.
five loaves and two fishes. All
Yeah.
right. And in the meantime, one of the things that I want to look at until we delve more deeply into what you mentioned is some of the highlights for today. I think it's important that our listeners be aware that the Hermitage dam is to be upgraded. Don't know if you're aware of that.
Yeah, man. It's
Um,
it's 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 one of the highlights we placed earlier. The
oh, you
expansion
did.
of things. Yeah.
Okay, you did.
We have the breaking news.
Right, and that's critical because while Kingston has been expanding, the infrastructure has remained largely the same from back in the some of them as early as the 20s. So this is a needful upgrade to the Kingston Hermitage Dam. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
I think we have added between the building of this dam to now nearly 500,000 new residents. and the dam remains the same.
The carrying capacity has been increasing, but the
But
actual
the tra-
aspect of things, they right. The
right,
producing aspect of it remains the same, and that doesn't bring us resilience. That doesn't improve the lives of people because, of course, you can have the nice, pretty apartments and improve buildings, but you have no water,
right, right,
and
right.
it's adding pressure throughout. You know, it's not unique to the Kingston area either, but it's a beautiful work to see that we've taken these things seriously. We've seen how
Right.
these cities are improving and evolving at a rapid rate, and as such, the systems that brings it all together and supports it, the lifeline, if I may say so,
Hmm.
have to be able to carry it just the same.
Right. We also have another good news. The Education Ministry says PEP exams were successfully held despite Melissa's disruption. And the good thing about it is that it was almost equal at the same amount between male and female that sat the exam.
But that is always good news. Because the disparity, between both is something we always want to ensure it's closer than wider as the age expands. So it's definitely good news. It's something to build on, not to rest on
Hmm.
our laurels for sure. And
Right.
it's a right step for education.
Right. In fact, we had 120,000 more, 120 males more than females this time around, which really, is something big to celebrate because usually the females tend to be more. This time, not only did we equal it, but we had a little bit more in terms of raw. The percentage is just about the same, roughly speaking, statistically
Oh,
speaking. But the numbers, the actual numbers, is 120 more. So that's good news. Um, on that note, though, we have a little bit of sad news in the media fraternity. Don't know if you're aware of it. Um,
Sinclair.
broadcaster, broadcaster Daniel
Oh,
Thompson has left
Thompson,
the media.
yes.
Yes, right. So that's not the very best in terms of the media, but the good thing is that he has ran his leg of the race, and we want to wish his family well along the journey and condolence to the rest of his family and extended family and friends. You know,
Al- Always. He's been, added value to the community and to the society. But when we look at it, you know, Joshua, the notes tonight took us through different eras,
hmm
and I would be only to be able to speak of two, and be of the two, I can only be fully informed on one, which is the present, right? But you is a man who lived all three, and I want to get to your perspective on policy around just one policy regarding that came out of Gilbert, Ivan, and compared to what we're seeing with NaRRA, which is birthed out of Melissa's disaster.
all right. So I am not very sure about the policies that existed, but one thing we know in terms of trying to refresh myself about Hurricane Gilbert. Upon the advent of Mr. Siaga to political office in 1980 as prime minister, he's the one who created the ODPEM, and just as how NARRA is now being created for
Mhm.
the rebuilding, reconstruction, and just looking at the overall expansion of the offerings to the people. So ODPEM was created so that we can better prepare for natural disasters that would take place. That in and of itself was a landmark event, and since then we are world recognized, internationally recognized as a result of that. So Mr. Siaga, being the visionary that he was, saw it necessary. Having gone through Hurricane Charlie from the 50s and Hurricane Allen in the 70s, there's so much, as you rightly stated, you would have been lost just hearing the names of some of these. Charlie, everyone knows about it, but Hurricane Allen, not many persons remember it. You know, um, then he saw it fit that instead of just being reactive we can have preparatory mechanisms or agencies that that prepare not only in terms of from a governmental standpoint, but the citizens of the country being ready to brace themselves and what they need to do in terms of having uh, lighting and food and additional water, perhaps even clothing and putting away their document. And one would think that these things are foregone conclusion and persons would have known. But the truth is, some persons really don't think about those. Some persons actually gallivant. And even with ODPEM being in place, sometimes you literally have to be begging persons to prepare and take it seriously. So with ODPEM being created as an agency that look forward to these things, then persons were better able now to not only prepare but to get the necessary information as to the do's and the don'ts, and also where the shelters are. So it's a structured preparation as opposed to persons doing as they think is fit. So
So,
yes, sir,
so,
go
so,
ahead.
so in essence, the time frame around, getting this done would have been significantly longer, probably over several years of trying to refocus in terms of restoring school, homes, and critical infrastructure. If we compare and contrast to where we are now, that would have been acceptable then, but that is not applicable to today's society and what is required of a country where we are. And
Um, clarify that for me. You said the time frame would have been longer then. Time frame for what exactly?
for the recovery overall, right? Rebuilding efforts, financial assistance and so on. It would have taken a longer time frame for the benefits of these things to trickle down and to reach the very people that it should. If we compare that to what is being asked of the current administration, we see a lot more being asked. We see a shorter time frame. Compare
Um,
that.
all right, so that's a good place for us to be. But when I mentioned ODPEV, I was actually looking at pre-disaster preparedness. That was the original purpose of ODPEM, to get people ready to brace for what is coming, right? It later morphed into assisting persons after the disaster had passed. But the original thing was, how do we get persons? Because let us go back to the reason for the conceptualization as we're at NaRRA now. The reason for the conceptualization is that when we had a Hurricane Allen, which wiped out Jamaica basically, and was devastating at the time, and we also had, no, not Allen, but Charlie, which happened in 1952, and then Allen afterwards, right? And we also had what was known as a June flood, which happened, I think, sometime in the 70s. I don't remember when in the 70s. That messed up Jamaica, really wiped out our GDP. In addition to the fact that economically we could not stand on our own 2 feet. Then the vision, when Mr. Sinaga came in, one of the first creations that he brought about was the creation of ODPEM, and it was a hurricane or a disaster preparedness vehicle, right? That was the primary purpose. So before it comes, what is it that we need to do to brace ourselves as a nation? To ensure that bulletins reach the people where it is at that particular point in time, how much miles it's traveling, to help people to understand what inches of water would mean, the wind speeds would mean, and how it's gonna impact your life.
So, so,
How
so
do
in essence, there, Joshua, we would be at that time, we were focused around how to be prepared and coordination process. It's
right,
really resilience like framework, which was mentioned in the notes, rebuild
right.
and do so incrementally. But if we look at what is being asked, no,
All right.
would what
So go ahead.
with what would have been done, those old ways that we build on. When we look at administrations that would have stuck with those ways, haven't evolved them prior to this administration, I'm speaking, right? seeing what Melissa has caused, we can no longer look to those ways to be reactive and to just figure out in just trying to be resilient and to build back what was there. We have to build forward, which means we have to be ahead of what is coming.
And you're correct, sir. In fact, the creation of NaRRA has taken it several steps ahead of where we were because whilst Advem was designed to get us prepared before it hits, it was never created to rebuild afterwards, right? And so we look at from 1980 to now, right? That's what, 46 years ago, right? 1980 to now is 46 years. And in 46 years, we have not come up with an agency or any arm of government that says, how do we not only rebuild, but make ourselves, as you use the term, and the Prime Minister has made it popular, how do we have a dedicated national recovery and rebuilding vehicle, right? And what really is NARA about? It is for that purpose that I mentioned. It's a dedicated national recovery and rebuilding vehicle, and it deals with forecasting for the inevitables or the future events and creation of smart cities or data-driven planning and building. I know that's a whole lot of things I just said a while ago. So let me go slower for those who may not have gotten it. Forecasting. So forecasting is really looking ahead in terms of now that we have gotten here, how do we build cities that we really can withstand anything that's coming? So whilst we have the
How do we build
municipalities
better?
that right, how do we build better? And that's what I think the Prime Minister is trying to convey to the rest of the nation, right? And I think it's unfortunate that the opposition is not joining in, considering that they want to rule, because it would have been so much easier for them, God forbid, and I'm saying that now that they become government, it would have been so much easier for them in the event of a natural disaster if they join in the chorus and help people to understand what all of these things are about. Because forecasting says, how is it that we prepare ourselves by through our building codes that we already have, but not just the building codes. How what lessons can we learn from the disaster that we have faced? You know, how did it impact us? And the smart cities that we're looking at building, you know, where do we build? So it's not
But,
just
but,
how,
but,
but
but Joshua,
where. Yes,
but
sir.
NARA takes us from just the building, right? From just
Uh-huh.
the physical infrastructure to a philosophical shift. From this
Right.
state being a responder to the state being a designer, creating design that the people buys into, to not necessarily rely on a government when it comes on to a disaster, but to be in tandem with the government and what it
Ah,
wants to do for the country.
and and
How
that is
do you see it?
and that is why I use the term forecasting and saying that the opposition really has a role to play in helping the people to understand. Because if you're gonna forecast and if you're gonna design something, and if the people are gonna be walking hand in hand, as is how a democratic society should really function and perform, then how do I walk hand in hand with you if one, no one is teaching me, no one is sharing the information, or I don't take the time out to learn for myself? Now, if the government alone, if the government is pushing one thing and the opposition is pushing a false narrative, which is counter to what the government is putting, then what it's doing, it runs the risk of defeating the purpose of what this thing is about. However, I have confidence, and based on what we have seen so far, NARA is going to be the game changer, right? Not just for Jamaica, but I believe that it will be a model to be replicated internationally because one of the things that two ministers of government in particular has said, and that's Delana Seabright and Robert Nestor Morgan, is that they were tasked by the Prime Minister to visit other countries and to learn from them how they fared, as it relates to the whole process of rebuilding. And they looked at different models, New Zealand being one. You can remind me of some of the other places,
New
Harry.
Zealand, Japan, US. But let me
Right.
hold that thought for me, Joshua. I'm getting information here that we will restart so we can have both the TikTok family and YouTube family
All right.
together having
Okay.
the full conversation. So YouTubers, please bear with us about 2 to 3 minutes. Let us just restart and come back to you. In the meantime, when we're back, please like, share, and subscribe for those. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Let us try and work through this technical difficulty, and we'll be back within 2 to 3 minutes, family.
Oh, they can hear.
Oh,
Yes, they can hear now.
it's just that we can't hear enough, Jeffrey.
Right, right. So I was actually working on that in the back end.
Okay, how are we looking with that, Jeffrey? Do we still have to restart?
Um, I think I think that should be okay to keep going. I'm still working on it in the
Still
back
working
end.
on it.
All right.
All right, let me.
Um, in the meantime, also, Harry, some of the things that I think is worth noting, and we may have to repeat it closer to the end once we get everything together. I was looking at some of the benefits that this government offered as a result of Melissa making landfall and the impact that it has had on persons, right? And I realized that there's a 6 months mortgage moratorium from NHT. In other words, the government has given a 6 months break on the mortgage. So those who
A
got an
release,
NHT, right?
release from the
So
So
financial
we're gonna
burdens
we're
of
gonna
it.
restart. We're gonna
all right,
restart.
Repeat
all
that
right.
for me,
So
Jeffrey.
We're
yes, so
gonna
we're gonna
restart.
restart. So YouTubers and TikTokers, just come back in a couple of minutes. We're going to restart the live and set up with a neighbor.
All right, so YouTubers, again, we're going to restart. We'll become bigger, brighter, and better. Please bear with us. Give us another 2 to 3 minutes. We will close the live and restart so we can hear everybody. Okay? Go ahead, Jeffrey.